a bass in the back that I'm seeing.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Yeah, I'm an old old punk dude playing in bands, played bands for 20 years. So it's just like I couldn't not have that in my office. So
Wow.
What about you, Scott? Play any instrument?
Yeah, I actually, I also was in some punk and metal bands. I played drums and got very good at it actually for a while because that was pretty much all I did.
Mm-hmm.
And like going up through high school, like I grew up in a pretty rural space, and my big fun thing to do was play drums. So I'd play for 4 or 6 hours a day, and so I got pretty good pretty quickly, and then had a lot of fun with the bands I was in, won a couple tours and whatnot, and put out a couple albums, and so mostly drums. After I couldn't really play music anymore because I was living in apartments and like rented houses in small neighborhoods, and drums are notoriously loud. I started, I bought myself a couple acoustic guitars and have tried to teach myself guitar a little bit. I'm very bad at it, but I can play a chord here and there.
And I think that experience too, like just being in punk bands and stuff like that, has really colored our experience as like being pretty cavalier with how we approach this. Like we are very DIY, very much so. Like we make this work. We very much so believe in our values and do what we want. And I think that's like one of the fun things about being on the podcast is like, we come from this background where it's like unabashedly we were ourselves, right? You come from this like punk rock community where it's like unabashedly you are already bucking the norm. And as scientists, we have the ability to kind of do that in a creative way, in a fun way, and in an outlet that is not the linear path to doing science or doing good science, right? Like that whole SciComm piece is very much so a DIY, do it yourself. Let's get this out there, and let's get kind of like, shake the foundations of academia and stuff. And so that's a lot of what, I mean, we have that ethos in us somewhere. We don't maybe verbalize that all the time, but like that's a big part of what colors the experience in the structure of the podcast, I think.
Yeah. You guys are pretty self-motivated. I'll say it. Like, yeah, I just picked up this instrument and that instrument. I also started a podcast. Also got my PhD. Also, yeah, I worked this job. And it's like, a lot of people are just like, okay, I wake up, what am I gonna do at all today? You guys have like 5 different things you want to do. So
Yeah.
why do we procrastinate? And then bigger than why should we do what we do is like, what should we do? What should we do with our time? Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I say sometimes oh, sorry, go ahead, Saeed.
No, I was just saying I'd definitely like to know the answer for that because I'm a big procrastinator myself.
Yeah. As far as the like just doing stuff, I've said before, I'm like, I don't remember what it feels like to be bored. I'm not sure that I could be like, for me, being bored is when I have to wait in line and I can't be reading or listening to a podcast or something because I don't have my headphones, and I'm just like, oh, what a waste of time this is.
What a waste of time.
And so, I mean, there's just, maybe I'm just a really ambitious guy, but I've definitely like, I have all of these things that I feel like I would like to try and do and be good at. And so, and if you listen to the board games episode, I play and love board games. And so like I've designed a few of my own board games. It's like when I'm not doing a bunch of other things that I've already committed to doing, then I'll sit down and I'll like work on designing a board game, or I'll play a board game, or I actually keep usually about 5 sets of different instructions for board games in my backpack so that if I'm somewhere and I can just sit down and read through the instructions and learn a board game while I'm waiting for something to happen, that I'll sit there and do that. And so that's, I don't know, like, there's so many things in the world that one could do that it's hard for me to imagine not wanting to do anything. And so, and I maybe that just comes from like, I've constantly been engaged with activities of various sorts. And, it's like, I actually have 100 things on that back burner. It was like, if everything in my life stopped working right now and I couldn't do the things I normally do, what would I do next? And I already have that list. And so, as far as procrastinating goes, that one is actually pretty straightforward. That's real straightforward learning history. It is when you don't have to do something because there's not an immediate deadline, or you have to do something but the deadline's fairly far out. You could do all the things that have an immediate reward in the interim, and there's no consequence for not doing the thing that you have to do later. And so there's all the reinforcement and all the reward for putting things off because it's just work that you don't want to do. If if you were to sit down and work on it at the time that you don't have to sit down and work on it, well, then you're missing out doing things that you would rather be doing anyway. So mostly what happens is that people learn how far they can get away with pushing things out into the future. And then they will continue to push that envelope of like, I'm going to do this. These are the people who are like, my flight leaves in 15 minutes. I haven't packed yet, and so, they're the kind of people who are like, they figure out ways of like, I can keep doing other things that I'd rather be doing or that I have to do, and last minute, and it'll still work for me most of the time. And alternatively, those people who don't procrastinate, who are like the real go-getters, are people who they figure out. And this is actually my roommate Val from when my friend who, like I said, is in Toronto now. He was kind of the anti-procrastinator. His big thing was like, do all the stuff I got to do so that I can just laze around doing nothing. And so like, as soon as he got something, he would just commit all his time to getting it done and then be like, sweet, I can just chill and watch hockey. And like, that was his thing. And so I was a little inspired by him to do a little bit more of that sort of thing. And try and get on top of my stuff. But anyway, I've talked for too long. Shane, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm a procrastinator myself. Like it is one of those things that I've tried to analyze myself. And again, it just comes back to, I figured it out. Like it's always worked for me. Like, I used to, every now and again on my time hop, I get to relive my journey through my undergrad and my grad school programs. And one of my favorite ones was, it was posted at 11:50. And I just posted on Facebook and it said, I have a paper due in 10 minutes. And I haven't started it yet. And it's supposed to be 10 pages. Wish me luck. And but that's the problem. It's like, I would do that. I would get it in and I would get it 100% on this paper. So it's like, it always worked for me. And I think that was one of those things that it specifically goes to learning history. I'll wait till the last minute. I'll get it done. And we figured out too, I think we did, because we talked about procrastination on an episode one time. And it was like, sometimes people, they think they work better under pressure and they actually don't. They make more errors and they actually cause more problems for themselves when they procrastinate when they're under pressure. But again, it's one of those things like, it just works for you. You delay the work as long as you can. You still get the payoff of doing the work in a quick manner. It just works. And it's just a matter of figuring out what works for you in that and figuring out how to kind of change that a little bit.
What do you do when it stops working for you?
That too.
What do I do when it doesn't work for me? I haven't.